This is a reading from The Little Flowers of St. Francis. 20. The Canticle of Brother Sun. Here begin the praises of the creatures which St. Francis made for the praise and honor of God when he was ill at San Damiano. Most high, almighty good Lord, yours are the praises, the glory, the honor, and all blessings. To you alone, most high, do they belong, and no man is worthy to mention you. Be praised, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially, Sir, Brother Sun, by whom you give us the light of day, and he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. O you, most high, of you, most high, he is a symbol. Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Moon and the stars. In the sky you formed them bright and lovely and fair. Be praised, my Lord, for Brother Wind, and for the air, and cloudy and clear, and all weather, by which you give sustenance to your creatures. Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Water, who is very useful and humble and lovely and chaste. Be praised, my Lord, for Brother Fire, by whom you give us light at night, and he is beautiful and merry and mighty and strong. Be praised, my Lord, for our sister Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us and produces fruits with colorful flowers and leaves. Be praised, my Lord, for those who forgive for love of you and endure infirmities and tribulations. Blessed are those who shall endure them in peace, for by you, Most High, they will be crowned. Be praised, my Lord, for our sister, bodily death, from whom no living man can escape. Woe to those who shall die in mortal sin. Blessed are those whom she will find in your most holy will, for the second death will not harm them. Praise and bless my Lord, and thank him, and serve him with great humility. This is the end of the book about certain wonderful deeds of St. Francis and his first companions. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, for the honor of our most holy Father Francis, God be praised. Appendices. 1. The Perfect Joy, Chapter 8. In 1927, Father Bughetti published the following significantly different version of the famous chapter from an early 14th century Latin manuscript. AFH 20,107. One day at St. Mary, St. Francis called Brother Leo and said, "Brother Leo, write this down." He answered, "I'm ready." "Write what true joy is," he said. "A messenger comes and says that all the masters of theology in Paris have joined the order. Write, that is not true joy." Or, all the prelates beyond the mountains, archbishops and bishops, or the kings of France and the king of England, write, that is not true joy. Or that my friars have gone to the unbelievers and have converted all of them to the faith. Or that I have so much grace from God that I heal the sick and I perform many miracles. I tell you that true joy is not in all those things. But what is true joy? I am returning from Perugia, and I am coming here at night in the dark. It is winter time, and wet and muddy, and so cold that icicles form at the edges of my habit and keep striking my legs, and blood flows from such wounds. And I come to the gate all covered with mud and cold and ice. And after I have knocked and called for a long time, a friar comes and asks, "Who are you?" I answer, "Brother Francis," and he says, "Go away. This is not a decent time to be going about. You can't come in." And when I insist again, he replies, "Go away. You're a simple and uneducated fellow. From now on, don't stay with us anymore. We are so many and so important that we don't need you." But I still stand at the gate and say, "For the love of God, let me come in tonight." And he answers, "I won't. Go to the crozier's place and ask there." I tell you that if I kept patience and was not upset, that is true joy and true virtue and the salvation of the soul. The striking minor differences between this shorter and more realistic version and the more elaborate account of Brother James of Massa, which is found in the Actus Fioretti, while confirming the substance of his report, point to the priority and greater historicity of the former, which is attributed to Brother Leonard of Assisi, a companion of the Poverello, who testified at his process of canonization. Incidentally, the same theme is also found in the saint's own writings, Fifth Admonition. Most significant of all are the words, "You are a simple and uneducated fellow," that directly recall another important text in which St. Francis declared that he was a true friar minor only if, after preaching at a coming chapter, he could rejoice when all the friars cried out, "We don't want you to rule over us because you are very simple and uneducated, and we are very ashamed to have a simple and contemptible person like you as our superior." And they drove him away from the meeting. And then follows an extensive quotation of numbers and capital letters. I guess it's a reference to where the source is, which I won't burden you with. Thus, the famous chapter on the perfect joy of St. Francis assumes a more profound significance in this older version, for it throws new light on the dark night of the soul, which the little poor man of Assisi actually experienced when he resigned his office. 2. The Wolf of Gubbio, chapter 21. Chi la dice lo primo? Who said this first? Chi la dice lo primo? The grammar sounds off. Anyway, reads a challenging note by the critical 18th century conventual historian N. Papini in the margin of a medieval manuscript account of the famous Wolf of Gubbio. Since the story has been questioned by some historians, even Jorgensen did not accept it, we believe the reader will appreciate a summary of all the available evidence concerning this disputed incident. The fully developed story first appears in the Actus about 100 years after St. Francis died, a mid-13th century chronicle of the Benedictine monastery of San Vericondo at Velignano, between Gubbio and Perugia, supplies the following undoubtedly genuine text. In recent times, the poor little man St. Francis often received hospitality in the monastery of San Vericondo. The devout abbot and the monks welcomed him with pleasure. Weakened and consumed by his extreme mortifications, watchings, prayers, and fastings, St. Francis was unable to travel on foot and was carried by a donkey when he could not walk, and especially after he was marked with the wounds of the Savior. And late one evening, while he was riding on a donkey along the San Vericondo road with a companion, wearing a coarse sack over his shoulders, some farm workers called him, saying, "Brother Francis, stay here with us and don't go farther, because some fierce wolves are running around here, and they will devour your donkey and hurt you too." Then St. Francis said, "I have not done any harm to Brother Wolf, that he should dare to devour our brother donkey. Goodbye, my sons, and fear God." So St. Francis went on his way, and he was not hurt. A farmer who was present told us this. Another early text that may or may not be relevant is the testimony of Bartholomew of Pisa in his Conformities, 1399, that on Mount Alberna, St. Francis once converted a fierce bandit. The local tradition adds that he was called Lupo, wolf, because of his savage cruelty, but that the saint renamed him Agnello, lamb. He is reported to have become a holy friar. It was due more to him, perhaps, than to the wild animals, that Count Orlando sent 50 soldiers to protect the two friars who explored the mountain in 1213. Could this Fra Lupo have been Fra Lupo who accompanied St. Francis on his journey to Spain in that year and who died in Burgos in 1291? In any case, the first clear reference which we have to the story of the taming of the Wolf of Gubbio is in the third edition of the Latin Legenda Sancti Francisci Versificata by the French poet Henri d'Avranches, dating from about 1290, which reads, "It is said that through his influence one wolf especially was tamed and made peace with the town." Moreover, the Franciscan custody of Gubbio adopted the figure of a wolf on its seal, perhaps as early as the 13th century. A district of the town of Gubbio also took a wolf's head as its emblem in 1349. Late in the 19th century, the wolf's skull, with its teeth firmly set in the powerful jaws, was reported to have been found in a small shrine on the Via Globo, which was said to be over the wolf's tomb. A stone on which St. Francis preached to the people after converting the wolf is shown to visitors in the Church of San Francesco de la Pace. Finally, in January 1956, press dispatches reported that packs of famished wolves were once again terrorizing villagers in central Italy. In a letter dated February the 8th, 1958, the distinguished conventual historian Giuseppe Abate writes that he is preparing a brief study of the incident based on original research in local archives, and that he considers it probable owing to the great weight of the 1290 reference, though perhaps a little embellished in the Actus. 3. The mystery of the stigmata. As a substantial portion of this book deals with the stigmata of St. Francis, a brief summary of basic facts and principles concerning that baffling subject may be helpful. In the sense used here, stigmata are visible or invisible wounds in the human body that are found in the same, but not necessarily exactly the same, places as those of Christ in his Passion, in the hands, feet, and left or right side, and occasionally around the head or on the shoulders and back. They usually bleed at intervals or continuously. Genuine stigmata are incurable by medical treatment and may last for years or vanish at any time. The Church is justified in taking an attitude of extreme caution toward all reported cases of stigmatization. It applies at least 6 technical criteria for the recognition of genuine cases: instantaneous apparition, substantial lesions, unmodified persistence despite treatment, bleeding, absence of suppuration, and complete instantaneous cicatrization. Genuine stigmata meeting those criteria have never been produced by experiments, despite many attempts by psychiatrists and hypnotists. However, modern research has demonstrated that mental and emotional causes can have visible effects on the skin. For instance, a mother who saw a window nearly fall on her child's neck has developed a sore on her own neck, and a hypnotized person, when told that a coin being applied to his arm is red hot, has developed a blister on the arm. Such facts may eventually help to supply a partial explanation of the role that natural processes may play in genuine stigmatization, insofar as they play any role at all. Actually, even the Church's foremost experts on this complex subject, which involves medicine, psychiatry, and mystical theology, are not in agreement on the basic nature of the stigmata. A Roman physician writing in the Encyclopedia Catholica, while admitting the existence of false stigmata, presents the traditional view that the stigmata of the mystics are beyond all the rules of psychopathology and must therefore be considered preternatural phenomena. But Professor Paul Siwek, S.J., insists that there are no convincing reasons to hold that stigmatization considered in itself necessarily surpasses all the powers of nature or is strictly miraculous. However, he grants that as they are an effect of ecstasy, they would be supernatural in cause if the ecstasy were a supernatural one. Moreover, the late Father Herbert Thurston, S.J., who studied innumerable case histories of surprising mystics, claimed that there are visionaries who have genuine stigmata, but who for all that are by no means saints. But who for all that are by no means saints, and who were suffering from pronounced and often extravagant hysterical neuroses. It is believed that some pseudo-stigmata have been caused by the devil. Probably some of the neurotic mystics whom Father Thurston mentioned also had pseudo-stigmata. The latest enigma in this still obscure subject is the puzzling case of a non-Catholic German businessman who apparently has the stigmata without being devout. There is no accurate account of the number of stigmatics in history, owing to inadequate evidence. Estimates covering the last 7 centuries range from 50 to over 300 cases. Relatively few have been beatified or canonized, and very few have been men. St. Francis of Assisi was probably the first stigmatic. Moreover, his stigmata also had a feature that has never been found in any other case: the protruding nails of flesh, which could only have been produced by a miracle, in the opinion of Agostino Gemelli, OFM. It is clearly the teaching of the Church that the stigmata of St. Francis were supernatural in the sense that a direct intervention of God was involved. Moreover, the Church has honored them with a special feast day in the liturgy. However, mystical theology also stresses that stigmatization, when genuine and supernatural, is a charism, a purely gratuitous gift like prophecies and visions, gratiae gratis date, which is not intrinsically connected with sanctity. Nevertheless, despite all the reserve and caution with which the Church rightly approaches this little understood phenomenon, every genuine case of stigmatization in a person whose sanctity has been acknowledged by competent authorities is evidence of extraordinary grace from God. The whole purpose of the phenomenon, as seen in the life of St. Francis and other holy stigmatics, is the vicarious participation in the passion of Christ and the expiation of the sins of men through the merits of the Redeemer by a voluntary intercessory suffering of soul and body. We would certainly fail to understand not only the little flowers of St. Francis, but the whole attitude of the Middle Ages toward the poverello, if we did not grasp the fact that his stigmata were generally looked upon as the ultimate certification by God of his unparalleled conformity with Christ, as far as is possible to a mere human creature. Dante, writing at the same time as the author of the Actus, immortalized that attitude in the famous lines, "Then on that crag between Tiber and Arno, he received from Christ the final seal." Paradiso 11, pages 106 to 7. Or perhaps verses 106 to 7. Biographical sketches. Note: precise biographical information regarding the companions of St. Francis is generally lacking. Even their years of death are often approximate. Surnames were gradually coming into use in the 13th century and were usually derived from the name of the father or a place or some striking aspect of the person. For instance, the secular name of St. Francis was Giovanni Francesco di Pietro di Bernardone. The date of commemoration in the Franciscan martyrology is given in parentheses when it is different from the date of death. A few important biographical references are included. For abbreviations, see the bibliography. Angelo Tancredi, lay brother, nobleman of Rieti, drafted there by St. Francis in 1210, the first knight to join the order and probably one of the first 11 companions, was with the saint at the Sermon to the Birds in Rome in 1223 and during his last days in Assisi. St. Francis praised his kindness and courtesy. One of the 3 companions who wrote the recollections of the Poverello at Greccio in 1246 was with St. Clare when she died in 1253, died about 1258, February 13th, buried in the Basilica of St. Francis in Assisi. Anthony of Padua, Antonio di Padova, saint, priest, born about 1195 in Lisbon, baptized Fernando, joined the canons regular of St. Augustine in Portugal, probably ordained priest before becoming a friar minor in 1220, sought martyrdom in vain in Morocco, was present at the general chapter in Assisi in 1221, taught theology to friars in Bologna, preached in northern Italy and southern France in 1225 to 27, elected provincial minister of Upper Italy in 1227, died near Padua on June 13, 1231, canonized by Gregory IX a year later, named Doctor of the Church in 1946. Bernardo, lay brother of Quintavalle near Assisi, member of a prominent family, became St. Francis's first formal companion on April 16, 1209, accompanied Giles on first mission to Florence, was leader of the journey to Rome in 1210 and founder of the first friary in Bologna in 1211, went with St. Francis to France and Spain in 1213 to 14, returned there the next year, spent much time in a grotto at the Carceri Hermitage. The saint praised his faith and love of poverty and gave him a special blessing before dying, spent 2 years in a hut on Mount Sefro near Camerino before Brother Elias was deposed as general, was visited in Siena in 1241 by the Franciscan chronicler Salimbene, died in Assisi between 1241 and 1246, July 10th. Claire, Chiara. Saint Abbess, born January 20th, 1194, in a prominent aristocratic family of Assisi, daughter of Favarone di Offreduccio, not Schifi or Schifi, Schifi. Heard St. Francis preach in 1210-11, sent him aid, refused to be married. After secret chaperoned interviews with the saint, received the habit of the second order from him at the Portiuncola on March 18, 1212. Spent 6 weeks in 2 Benedictine convents near Assisi, was joined by her sister Agnes, settled at San Damiano at the end of April, appointed abbess in 1215, received privilege of poverty from Pope Innocent III in 1216, sent Agnes in 1219 to be abbess of Monticelli convent near Florence. Serious 30-year illness began about 1224. Her mother, Ortolana, joined the order in 1226. On October 3rd, 1226, St. Francis's funeral procession stopped at San Damiano. Pope Gregory IX visited her in 1228 and 1235. Her sister Beatrice joined the order in 1229. In September 1240, Saracen troops attacking San Damiano were repulsed by her prayers to Christ in the Eucharist. In June 1241, her prayers delivered besieged Assisi. Her last years were troubled by a conflict over the order's rule. She fell seriously ill in 1250. Pope Innocent IV visited her in April and August 1253, approving her rule on August 9th. Died August 11th, 1253, or August 12th. Canonized by Alexander IV in 1255. Conrad of Offida, Corrado da Offida, blessed priest, born 1237 in Offida, Marches, became a friar at 14 in 1251, spent 10 years in a hermitage, ordained priest, assigned to Ancona in 1267, spiritual director of Tertiary Blessed Benvenuta, visited Brother Leo in Assisi, assigned to Mount Alverna in 1274, knew spiritual leaders Jean-Pierre Olieu and Ubertino da Casale, then in Florence, as one of the 5 holy hermit friars assigned to dwell near the chapel of the Stigmata, was in the adjoining cell when St. Francis appeared to Brother Matthew of Castiglione in 1281. After 1287, served in Furano with Blessed Peter of Montecchio, then in Cirolo and Offida. In 1295, advised spiritual leaders to request Pope Celestine's permission to form a separate, stricter order, but after receiving Olivi's letter, decided to remain in the Franciscan order. See introduction. When accused of separatism, won the lasting confidence and veneration of Minister General Giovanni di Murro. Retired to Rivo Torto, preached at Assisi on Portiuncola feasts 1304 to 1306. Died in nearby Bastia while preaching Advent, 1306, December the 12th. Remains moved to Perugia in 1320. In 1872 to the cathedral, cult approved by Pius VII in 1817. Elia, lay brother, born in a village near Assisi about 1180, named Buon Barone, was a mattress maker and schoolteacher in Assisi, then student and notary at Bologna University. Joined the order about 1211 to 1215, appointed first minister of province beyond the sea in 1217, founded friaries in Acre, Damietta, and Constantinople, returned to Italy with St. Francis in 1220, succeeded Peter Catani as vicar 1221 to 27, built the Basilica of St. Francis during John Parenti's generalate 1227 to 32. As general from 1232 to 39, promoted missions and studies, but ruled despotically and oppressed St. Francis's companions Bernard, Maceo, Giles, Angelo, and Riccieri. On complaint of many superiors, was deposed by Gregory IX in 1239, retired to Celle Hermitage near Cortona, was excommunicated after joining the excommunicated Emperor Frederick II in Pisa, served 1240 to 50 as his advisor and emissary to Constantinople and Sicily, where he built fortresses, spent his last years in Cortona, died there on April 22nd, 1253, repentant and reconciled to the Church by a secular priest. Giles of Assisi, Egidio d'Assisi. Blessed lay brother of a peasant family, when about 18, joined St. Francis as third companion on April 23, 1209, accompanied him on first journey to the Marches in 1209 and to Rome in 1210, went on pilgrimages to Compostela, Brindisi, Bari, Jerusalem, and Rome, lived in a grotto at the Carceri. St. Francis, who praised his spirit of contemplation, assigned him to Favarone Hermitage near Perugia. In 1219, sought martyrdom in vain in Tunis, was in Rieti in 1225, present at St. Francis's death in 1226, then went to Cetona. Deplored relaxation in the order. About 1234, settled at Monteripido, Perugia, was visited there by Brother Jacopa, several cardinals, Pope Gregory IX, from 1234 to 36, and St. Bonaventure, 1260. Present at Brother Bernard's death in Assisi. Died at Monteripido, April 22nd, 1262, April 23rd. His remains were buried in San Francesco al Prato in Perugia, moved in 1827 by the future Pope Leo XIII to his archiepiscopal palace, in 1886 to the cathedral, and in 1920 back to Monteripido, cult approved by Pius VI in 1777. Giovanni di Cappella, lay brother of Assisi. Because of the conformities theme, the career of this Franciscan Judas is semi-legendary. One of the first 11 companions, as procurator, he associated with seculars and introduced the first relaxation of strict poverty by providing overabundantly for the friars, and perhaps by introducing caps or cowls, though capella may be a place name. After St. Francis reproved him sharply several times, he left the order when the saint went to Egypt. He then organized a new order of men and women suffering from leprosy and sought the approval of the Holy See, but was firmly rejected. Having contracted leprosy, he committed suicide by hanging himself. Gregory IX, Pope, C. Ugolino, Cardinal, later Pope Gregory IX, born in Agnani in 1170 in family of Counts of Segni, nephew of Pope Innocent III, and related to Alexander IV, studied in Paris and Bologna, appointed cardinal deacon by his uncle in 1198, cardinal bishop of Ostia and Belletri in 1206, served as papal legate in Germany and northern Italy, aided Camaldolese and Cistercian monks, and especially the three Franciscan orders, as cardinal protector of the first and second and co-founder of the third, was an intimate friend of St. Francis and St. Clare, elected pope in 1227, for 20 years defended the church against the emperor Frederick II, canonized St. Francis 1228, St. Anthony 1231, and St. Dominic 1238, died in Rome August 22nd, 1241. James of Falerone, Giacomo da Falerone, priest, born about 1215 at Falerone, Marches, family not known, probably studied in Fermo, was perhaps a secular priest when he became a friar, knew Brother Maceo, served as novice master at Mogliano, was spiritual father of John of Alverna, became a leading regional preacher, not identified as a spiritual, died about 1296 to 1302, July 25th, in Mogliano. James of Massa, Giacomo da Massa, lay brother, born in Massa Fermana, Marches, about 1220 to 30, as he knew Brother Simon, traveled in Umbria and became acquainted with Brother Giles, Leo, Maceo, and Juniper. According to his close friend, the author, the Actus, our only source, he was considered a saintly mystic by them and by his provincial in the Marches, Matthew of Montone, undoubtedly a spiritual, but one who remained in the order, apparently still alive when James of Falerone died about 1296 to 1302. John of Alverna, Giovanni della Verna or da Fermo, blessed, priest, born at Fermo, Marches in 1259, family not known. At 10, joined Augustinian canons. In 1272, at 13, became a Franciscan, had James of Falerone as novice master, served in Massa and Mogliano, moved to Mount Alverna about 1290, and lived in hut in woods, probably returned briefly to Marches as he was present at James's death in Mogliano about 1300, preached throughout Tuscany and Umbria, opposed the spirituals. On December 24th, 1306, administered last rites to his close friend, the famous friar poet and spiritual Jacopone da Todi at Colazzone. On July 24th, 1311, testified at Alberna concerning the Portiuncula indulgence, often heard confessions in Assisi on Portiuncula Day. In 1322, preached Lenten sermons in Siena, wrote a one-page essay on the states of the soul, died in odor of sanctity on Mount Alverna on August the 9th, 1322, cult approved by Leo XIII in 1880. Ginepro, lay brother of Assisi, joined the order about 1210, sent by Francis to found friaries in Viterbo and Gualdo Tadino, accompanied him on a journey to Rome and Naples. The saint praised his self-knowledge, perfect patience, and desire to imitate Christ, was present at St. Clare's death in 1253, died in Rome in 1258, January 4th. Leone, priest of Assisi, probably ordained just before or after joining the order in 1210, became the saint's confessor, secretary, and constant companion in his last years. Francis praised his supernatural simplicity and purity of soul. The only two extant examples of the Poverello's handwriting are notes written to him, copied a breviary for St. Clare, and was present at her death. In 1246, at Greccio, wrote his memories of St. Francis with Angelo and Rufino. Also wrote lives of Bernard, lost, and Giles, and probably wrote or inspired the oldest parts of the Mirror of Perfection and the Legenda Antiqua of Perugia. Was sent by the Poor Clares of Assisi with a message to St. Bonaventure. Spent his last years at the Portiuncula, where he was visited by Salimbene, Conrad of Offida, James of Massa, and Angelo Clareno. Died in Assisi in 1271, November 15th, buried in the Basilica of St. Francis. Masseo, lay brother of Marignano near Assisi, tall and handsome, joined the order about 1210, spent much time in a grotto at the Carceri and at the Gibotola Hermitage, often traveled with St. Francis, was with him in Perugia in 1216 when he obtained the Portiuncula indulgence. The saint praised his pleasant demeanor, common sense, and inspiring speech. Knew James of Falerone and James of Massa, perhaps the last survivor of the companions. Died at the Portiuncula in 1280, November 17th, buried in the Basilica of St. Francis. Peter Catani, Pietro Cataneo or Catani, blessed, lay brother, probably belonged to prominent Pecciarone family of Gualdo Cataneo, although the surname Catani is found in contemporary Assisi documents. Doctor of Law at University of Bologna, perhaps a canon of San Rufino Cathedral in Assisi. Joined the order with Bernard on April 16, 1209. Served as vicar during absences of Francis from Assisi, 1212 to 1214. Accompanied him to Egypt and Syria and back to Italy, 1219 to 20. Was appointed minister, vicar, general in September 1220 when the saint resigned. Died at the Portiuncula, March 10, 1221, buried there. Peter of Montecchio, Pietro da Montecchio or da Treja, blessed, priest, born about 1225 to 30, became a friar in Montecchio, now Treja, in the Marches, sent to Ancona about 1270, new confrade of Offida there and in Forano about 1287, was a leading spiritual until the crisis of 1295, preached throughout the Marches, died at Sirolo February 19, 1304, remains moved to Montecchio Treja in 1654, cult approved in 1792 by Pius VI. Philip, Filippo Longo, lay brother of Costa di San Salvino near Assisi, a Crozier monk when he joined the order in 1209 as one of the first 11 companions, was given the nickname Longo, tall, which was then becoming a surname. Probably preached in the Marches, served as visitator of the Poor Clares 1219 to 20th and 1228 to 46, retired to Greccio, died in Perugia about 1259, March 14th. Rufino, lay brother of Assisi, cousin of St. Clare, his father Scipione and her father Favarone being brothers, small in stature. Joined the order in 1210, often lived in a grotto at the Carceri. St. Francis praised his constant and powerful spirit of prayer, was with the saint on Mount Alverna in 1224, one of the three companions who recorded their memories at Greccio in 1246, was still living in 1278, year of death unknown, November 14th, buried in Basilica of St. Francis. Silvestro, priest of Assisi, an elderly canon of San Rufino Cathedral, joined the order after the approval of the rule in 1210. The first Franciscan priest, a great contemplative, lived long in a grotto at the Carceri, accompanied St. Francis to Arezzo in 1217, died in Assisi about 1240, March 4th. And then a chart showing the oral tradition of the Actus or Fioretti. I'll just show it to you. And the rest is notes and references relating to the chapters, which really are not for reading. They have to be read after you read the actual reference to which they're attached.